Welcome back to Eric's Hobby Workshop. I'm building the largest Titan in Warhammer 40k, the Emperor class Imperator Titan. In universe, it stands over 100 meters high, and at Warhammer 40,000 scale, that means it stands over 7 feet tall. Things are really starting to come together, but there's still lots to be done. At the end of the last video, I showed you guys the grey coating that I'd put on nearly all of the Titan, but I actually skipped a few important parts. So let's flash back in time a few weeks, and I'll show you what happened. Alright, we're looking at the back of the Titan here. Now, if you look at the epic scale Imperator Titan, that is essentially the model for this whole project, what you'll see is that behind the central dome, there is a large tower sticking up, and that tower has a giant gun on it. And up until now, I have not added that large back tower to my Titan. But why, you ask? Well, as I've mentioned before, my previous studio had a very low ceiling. It was only just under 7 feet tall. So maxing out the height that this Titan could be, I was just at almost 7 feet tall. And if you look at the relative heights of the towers on the Titan's back, well, the back tower should be the tallest one. And that was something I was really struggling with the design of this project. But the good news is that my new studio has a taller ceiling. Look at that. More space for more Titan, baby. So we're going up. Bam! Bloody huge. This is just a mock-up right now. It's held together with tape. But I've learned my lesson from building a bunch of towers. And you can see I've left different independent panels here, which will allow me to cut out windows, etc., without too much disruption to this whole thing. So as you can see, this thing is gigantic. This adds so much more size to the back of the Titan here. And I think that's dope as hell. It does overhang the back of the base a little bit. So we will have to build something here to support it. Now, obviously this back tower is very plain. It's literally just a rectangular prism, a little bit too low poly for our purposes. So I want to add some buttress details to the corners that will give it some nice detail and sort of make it look stronger, and also just add a lot of visual interest. And so off camera, I mocked one up. Basic. It's literally just 1/4 inch foam by 1 inch layered together. And if I place this on there like that, you get a little bit of an idea of what that's gonna look like. So if we do 2 on each face, basically 2 on each corner, we'll end up with something like this. Still a pretty large straight tower, but vaguely more detailed. And again, we're increasing the overhang off the back, but that should be fine. Okay, this prototype is approved. So I cut all my strips using my hot wire cutter. Don't look at all that. With all my buttress pieces cut, I glue those together with a combination of construction adhesive and hot glue. The hot glue is basically just to tack everything into place while the construction adhesive dries. The tower itself, I disassemble and lay flat on my table. This gives me access to the panels that make up the individual floors, which I stack together. I attach a 3D printed jig onto both sides of them with some painter's tape, then cut the windows with my hot wire cutter. I can then stack those back into place using some more painter's tape to hold them in place to make sure it all looks good. You can see I decided to make the tower a bit shorter, which left my buttresses too long, so I trimmed those down as well. With those assembled, I'm going to check to make sure I like how the tower's looking and get ready to add some windows. Alright, we got this beautiful facade now. Time to put some windows into the apertures. The windows for this project are going to be 3D printed using the Bamboo Labs A1, sent to me by the sponsor of this video, Bamboo Labs.
I'm extremely impressed by this printer. Everything feels very advanced and well thought out. Assembly was quite straightforward, as all the screws are very clearly labeled, and I also set up the AMS light attachment, which allows you to print in multiple colors. It was the calibration though that really impressed me. In addition to being self-leveling, which is always nice, it had some really advanced features. Once you boot it up, it starts measuring the noises of its own motors, so it can make itself quieter with a noise cancelling algorithm. It also measures and adjusts to its own vibrations, so it can compensate for that as well for more accurate prints. Listen to it doing that right now, vibrating at higher and higher frequencies. It sounds like a supercar or something. That rules. But the most important part, of course, is that it just churns out beautifully crisp prints reliably and easily. I've been designing several 3D files to go on this project, so let's have a look at some of them. Firstly, I've designed some Gothic windows in several different sizes and designs, and they've come out really nicely even when printed in batches. The quality on this printer is actually quite shocking. I did some test prints printing some classical statues at a small scale, which we'll be using to decorate this Titan, and the details are fine enough to make this a viable option. I also designed these cool spire details to add some extra style to some of the corners of the cathedral on top. And with the automatically generated supports, I was able to print a whole bunch of them in crisp detail. We'll get back to these later. I actually want to show you something else I've been using this printer for, which is to print these little movement trays for my Warhammer armies. Obviously 40k isn't a game that uses movement trays in gameplay necessarily, but I love the way it keeps my minis organized and displayed on the shelf. With the AMS light, I can print these things in black without even having to switch reels of filament, and each one only costs pennies. So check out the Bambu Labs A1 using my link in the description below. They're currently having a Black Friday sale with their lowest prices ever, so it's the perfect time. You could also win some prizes. Thanks Bambu Lab for sponsoring this video. With a bunch of those windows printed out, let's slot them into the facade. To make them evenly recessed into the window frames, I add an extra window to each window slot, before gluing the windows in behind. This means that when I pull out the spacer windows, each window is a perfect even depth of exactly one window. As I was gluing these windows in, it occurred to me how much easier it would have been to glue the windows in before assembling each panel of the building. Oh well, live and learn. On the interior, I glue some strips of foam in to support the eventual floor. I'm not sure what's going to be in this tower at this point. I think probably a central elevator shaft, and then maybe some computer consoles and stuff. We'll see. Thinking ahead here, I'm going to want to access the inside of this tower. So instead of simply gluing the back on, I test fit the back face, then add some high strength magnets. I found it worked really well to use the tip of the glue gun to melt a little hole for each magnet, which I then glued in place with the same hot glue. This makes a reasonably strong bond, but the magnets are so strong they can pull themselves out of their holes sometimes rather than separate. To keep them from doing this, I glue a sheet of paper over top of them with some high strength wood glue. This will disperse the force and hopefully keep the magnets in their holes. Let's test it. Oh, it clicks right on. I like that, very satisfying. With everything in place, I fill the gaps with some spackle filler and then coat the whole thing in a mix of gray paint and wood glue to protect it and seal it.
Okay, I am once again in Home Depot buying supplies for the Titan. Is this going to be the last time I visit Home Depot? Probably not, but we'll do our best. EEX sticks here. They're about $5 each. And they're pretty long. I actually found these straighter, solider PEX pipes. I'm gonna go with that instead. They also fit in the cart. Oh, come on.
Anyways, I'm gonna take those PEX pipes home and cut them into short lengths with a pipe cutter. Then, using some PVC pipe fittings, I'll combine them to make this sort of shape here. So I was thinking about where I could get some tubes and assorted greebles and things like that, and I had the brilliant idea to ask my kids' school if they had any dry markers that they would be willing to part with. And lo and behold, I got a big tub full of dry markers. And, you know, this is just a great example of the old adage that one man's trash is another man's treasure. So some of these markers happen to be the perfect size, so I insert them into the other bit to make a small piston. The terminus of it is made from another small bit of PEX and a foam piece cut to shape. Using some 2-part epoxy sculpt putty, I fit those together at the desired lengths, attaching them solidly and permanently. Epoxy sculpt putty is one of my favorite things to work with because it's pretty cheap, it dries rock hard, and it's easy to work with. With my final shapes right, I paint the foam bits with some wood glue to protect and seal. These are going to be the adductor-like pistons that go in the Titan's groin. These are a small detail on the Titan that's actually quite large when compared to a Space Marine. Similarly, a piece like this, which in another context could be a decent-sized piece of Wargames terrain, on this outrageous project, it's literally just the support for the tower on the back that we built earlier. Unbelievable. On it goes. Hell yeah. Using a block of foam and some 3D printed jigs, I cut a piece of foam on 2 different axes into an interesting shape to house my 3D printed window frames. That's one of the advantages of 3D printing these window frames, is being able to make these jigs in the negative. The cut ended up a little bit rough, so I patch it with spackle filler, then seal it like before, and attach these onto the Titan as well. This is just the start of the process of adding windows and guns all over the Titan to add an extra level of detail. Let's also add those 3D printed spires that I mentioned before. With the tower on the back, it really changes the dynamic of the Titan.
With those additions, finally the cathedral on the top is starting to take shape in the way that I want it to. I finally feel like the towers have the right ratio with respect to each other. And it gives the whole thing this beautiful symmetry and elegance that is exactly what I've been always trying to capture. Now, obviously on the back tower there will be an option for a very large orbital defense cannon. But I also thought it would be cool if there was another configuration where you could have an Arvis lighter or some sort of other ship land there on a landing pad. So that's something I'm going to be working on as well. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Eric's Hobby Workshop.